Hi, everybody. Welcome to Decode REI. My name is Mina Rickey,
And I'm Lidiya Korzhuk.
and today we are interviewing Alex Corpolongo. Alex's training and degree is in civil engineering, and he spent the beginning of his career managing major construction projects in New York City and Tampa.
Alex has developed an expert and network of professionals with whom he collaborates in the multifamily real estate domain, and he built strategic and scalable acquisition and management system that he now applies across the Tampa Bay.
Today, he spends his time optimizing the performance of the portfolio and sifting through hundreds of properties to find the few worth adding to it. Welcome, Alex, to the Core REI. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you guys.
Yes, thank you for coming. Alex, before we jump into our official podcast interview, I would love to hear one of your funny story being a multifamily owner.
Oh gosh. I mean, I have I guess it depends. Some of these stories are painful for me, but funny for others, I'd imagine. I think a lot of my funniest stories actually have happened during like acquisition closing of properties rather than managing them. You deal with some very interesting personalities talking to sellers of assets. The first one in particular, it was just a communication nightmare. And the broker as well was a difficult guy to work with. And I was working a full time job at the time, an intense full time job at the time. I was senior project manager of a downtown Tampa hotel development. So I was putting in about 8 hours there and 8 hours into this every single day, maybe more on some days. And I'd come home after working and it'd be like midnight, and that would be the time that this seller was responding to all of the things. So, and I never wanted to lose an inch as far as leverage negotiations goes. I never wanted them to be waiting on me for everything. So I wouldn't go to bed until 1, 2 a.m. plenty of times, just so I knew that his correspondence was coming in at midnight or 1 a.m. So I would stay up just so that I'd be able to see what he was asking of me, get it to him immediately, put the ball back in his court. That was a fun one. There's been on every single deal is different. Every deal is difficult in its own way and easier in some ways. So it's
That
been a fun
first
ride
one,
overall,
Alex,
I'd say.
saying that is the one that it could have scared you away. You could have been like, okay, it's a little bit too much. I'm not ready. Let me just stay back and wait for the next one. But you kept going, even waiting until 1 a.m. Just tell us a little bit what was going on at work. Tell us a little bit what was going in your head. What was the challenge? Why were you following through the challenge?
Yeah, so that was an interesting deal. How I was able to find that that one was going to be really lucrative was I bought that deal after losing out
Ah,
on two other properties in the same neighborhood. So I bid, I was like best and final round type bidding on two other properties that were very close by, and I wish I bought those. But this one came out, and the broker was he wasn't as big as far as being part of a big brokerage, getting a whole bunch of eyeballs on it. And I thought also it seemed that he was a little bit less in tune with that market, which was surprising because there were two transactions that had just happened within the previous 9 months. And I was very in tune with those ones. And I was keeping track on those deals, seeing what rents they were getting over there. And I noticed in the broker's package that he was advertising that rents could get to a certain number that I thought was surprisingly low. He was advertising that rents I think would be $1,200 upon stabilization. I knew they'd be at least 1350 at the time, and now, realizing now and riding off some of the awesome rent growth that's happened in Florida and Tampa specific, and then this neighborhood specific has been beautiful. We're up at 1550, $1,600 at that property now, only a year after closing. But to get back to why I was able to see that it was an awesome deal was just my specific knowledge, my insight of that neighborhood. That I think everybody assumes that the broker knows more than them in every transaction, or maybe people assume the opposite. I don't know, but I was very surprised to see that he was underselling the asset, and I knew if he was underselling the asset to everybody who was looking at it, and I knew that it would perform better than other people thought it would perform evaluating the same deal, that I could come out on top. So I knew what I had as soon as I got that thing under contract, and then in that closing process, the reason why I was staying up late, midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., sometimes not sleeping at all, is just because I knew what I had. I knew that I needed to close on that deal. That would be a great entry point into this business that I'd spent years building on the back end. Now to get into this thing full time, I knew I had to make it
That's an
happen.
amazing
That's what I
story,
did.
and definitely you're committed. So, talk about the deals. What strategies do you use to identify and analyze potential deals?
Yeah, everything and anything, I would say. I have great broker relationships. I stay in touch with many, many different brokerages, seeing deals that are kind of pre-market. I love to see. I hunt things off market as well. I've got a growingly robust off market strategy that I'm using, that I used to buy my last two deals. But that's not to say that every deal I'm going to do is off market. I don't turn my nose up at on market stuff, especially right now. I think there's going to be some opportunity in the marketplace right now for somewhat distressed, call them pre-distressed, call them half distressed assets that are being listed that I don't think are going to be bought at crazy distressed discounted numbers, but there's going to be opportunity there. So I'm staying in touch with brokers every single day. Even today on a Saturday, I'm seeing two different groups. So like I said, I'm not too picky on strategy. I'm picky on the deal when I find it.
I hear you talk, Alex, and you sound like you are like this old guy that has been doing this forever. I guess we missed a little bit on your background. Let's tell the public, the audience, how old are you? How long have you been in multifamily? And actually, it's kind of, I know this story, but you should share also how did you find out about multifamily and what were you doing before? Just tell us a little background, Alex, please.
Sure. So I am 28 years old. I turned 28 a week ago today. I got into multifamily. Well, my training is in civil engineering. I went to school at Stony Brook University in Long Island. I played lacrosse there. I was a big lacrosse player growing up. That's kind of what I always wanted to do. So I dedicated my life to it for about 20 years. And I was in studying civil engineering. I was starting to see that lacrosse was not going to be what I wanted it to be as far as providing the income, the lifestyle that I was looking for. So I just brainstormed. I mean, I was looking for a sign, really. Like I said, I was studying civil engineering. I didn't know if I wanted to do that for the rest of my life. There's aspects of it. I have an engineering mindset. I do love engineering, but some of the applications I was slightly frustrated with, and I just couldn't necessarily see myself doing it for the rest of my life. So stumbled across, I think, a YouTube video in my senior year of college called passive income through real estate, something like that. And it just caught my eye. I'd never seen that pairing of words together before. And clicked on it, took me down a similar rabbit hole that most people who get into this space, who kind of stumble across this space, get into. Some people are lucky enough to have family, fathers, grandfathers who are in this business, and so it's just natural for them to get into the business. But that wasn't my story. So I kind of came across that video, couple books, couple podcasts, couple hundred books, couple hundred podcasts later. And I was learning more and more about the multifamily business every day. I came out of school, actually started working as a construction project manager in New York City. So I was developing great construction development knowledge, and that I was able to leverage as I started getting into this. So I identified while I was up in New York that I didn't want to be investing there. There were a couple different markets across the country that I started targeting as far as where I wanted to be, where I wanted to start this out. I was looking at Tampa, I was looking at Nashville, Phoenix, Raleigh, a couple others, and I spent a long weekend down here in Tampa. I've got an aunt and uncle who live in the Tampa Bay, and I saw some of the development that was happening here. There was a bunch of cranes in the air, no buildings yet. So I saw that Tampa was, it really just struck me as a baby stage New York. And I thought, this is where I want to be. It's going to be a great place to be for the next 20, 30, probably rest of my life, right? So I packed up my bags and moved down. I got stuck in Orlando for a little bit over a year. So I still was stuck somewhat investing from afar for a bit longer than I wanted. Hadn't bought anything yet. COVID hit. There was obstacles and hurdles to get through the whole time. But, that story about that first deal that hit, that came around and I made it happen. I knew that one had to happen, and I went for it. Luckily for me, that entire time, and this is advice that I would give anybody starting to get into this game, is I was reaching out to everybody. I was telling everybody that I knew what I was doing. There was a big shakeup. Growing up, I call it a successful, childhood upbringing. I was a very good student, very good athlete growing up. And so a lot of people in the town that I was leaving in New York were a little bit, upset that I was going. They were like, oh, okay, you got off to such a good start here. Why don't you want to stay? And so I maintained in touch with all those people, and everybody was interested in what I was doing, what I was going to, that I was leaving something that seemed to be such a good space to be leaving. What I was going to had to be good, right? So everybody kind of stayed interested, and I kept in constant communication with a lot of the people that I grew up with, playing lacrosse, playing football in middle school, high school, into college. So these were some great relationships that turned into being some of my first and some of my most loyal investors throughout the different properties that I've bought thus far. So everything happens for a reason. I think while I was in it, I probably thought, I could be doing this way faster than I'm doing it right now. But like I said, everything happens for a reason, and I'm at the spot where I'm at right now. Right now, am I completely content with where I'm at? No. I think that I could be doing more. I think I could be doing better every single day. I kind of look at myself and question, what am I doing today that's preventing me from becoming who I want to be tomorrow? And that's just a constant conversation that I have with myself every day. But it's a good spot to be. If I told myself 3 years ago that I'd be where I am today, I'd be very happy. So just going to continue improving and
That's awesome.
moving forward from here.
That is great. Sounds like you're a master networking. That's amazing. This whole field, multifamily, is about networking in team. I want to talk about your team. Can you tell us who's on your team that makes you more successful and efficient?
I mean, team is huge to me, right? So it's tough to set. Do I have a exclusive partnership? Is my business, Raven Real Estate Acquisitions, is that an exclusive partnership with other individuals? No, this is myself. This is my brother as well. Just joined me in this pursuit this year as well. That's another story I'd love to get into, of kind of his trajectory into the business as well. But I mean, a one-man show doesn't happen, right? So what you just talked about, networking, it's not just networking with, potential partners, investors, as far as like the money goes, but like in Tampa specifically, I have gotten to know over the past couple of years so many banks, attorneys, accountants, inspectors, contractors, property managers, from top to bottom, everybody that you could kind of leverage in this world of multifamily real estate. I try to know them, right? Even people that you don't necessarily right away look at as potentially having synergies, financial advisors, for example, right? I'm not at a space right now where I want to be putting a whole ton of my funds into some type of wealth management portfolio, right? But I get to know some of these guys, and I love connecting, even if I don't benefit from it. I love being a connector for some person in their business to somebody else, to create synergies between two people that I may have no equity in, no part of the upside of, other than just creating two great people, connecting two great people to do something together, right? So I guess I'm dancing around your question a little bit, but my team goes from lenders, my attorneys, my accountants, my property managers. I hire third-party property managers for all my deals, and they're very, very good. I work hand in hand with them. It's kind of the mantra, like, let the property manager manage the property, and then you manage the manager, right? And that's what we do. I Sometimes more than others, I need to get into the weeds. Say for example, we've got vacancy creeping up for some reason. I'll get back more into the daily operations. What are we doing? How are we strategizing? How are we advertising? What are our rates right now? Are those the best rates right now? Is the market pulling back a little bit? So you get to the granular and then you pull out. And then, like I said, the other partner that I have in this business now is my brother Justin, who's a year younger than me. He was a physics teacher in Queens, New York, and his plan was actually to come on down to Florida right behind me. I came down in October of 2019, and Justin got in an unlucky altercation. Actually, just a couple days after I moved down, I woke up to a whole bunch of text calls at 5 a.m. from my brother's friends saying that Justin had gotten into some trouble. He's at the hospital. Found out that he had gotten in an altercation with somebody that he knew and got stabbed and almost died that night. Talk about one of the other hurdles kind of to us, coming together and being able to do this, what we set out to do. That was a major one, right? And me, it wasn't even a week after I moved down to Florida, and me immediately thinking, boy, I leave for a couple days, and now he's, in the emergency room, barely hanging on to his life for a couple days. So that was an extra kick in the pants for me, right? COVID hit kind of maybe months after that happened. I think a lot of people pulled back at that time, said, okay, COVID hit, the world's shutting down. Now's a good time to catch up on my favorite movies, my favorite Netflix shows. And I didn't do that. I went and got a commercial general contractor's license here in Florida. And that ends up being one of my biggest strengths in these deals. I go after all these value add opportunities, kind of older looking properties in great neighborhoods. And I come, put lipstick on them, or solve maybe some more structural problems, whatever it may be. Do things that other people shy away from doing to completely juice the NOI out of a property that was being mismanaged by the previous owner. So my construction acumen has been, like I said, one of the biggest strengths in that strategy. So back to everything happens for a reason. What looked like a horrible thing, COVID, the world shutting down, oh boy, not going to be able to find a deal. It ended up allowing me to use that time to get specific knowledge for something that's going to help my business explode.
Yeah. I want to touch a little bit on Justin because I met him and he is such a handsome young man. He also is very smart too. So what is he doing in your operations? How are you guys teaming up? And the reason why I'm asking this is because I have a sister who's a nurse in Dallas, and she's been kind of curious of what we're doing with the multifamily. And I invited her to the last money mixer, and she was like, "Wow, that's kind of cool." Anyways, so how do you guys work? What's the relationship like? And I know that coming out of life-threatening situation, it does changes perspective. Knowing, I mean, like last night, we were hanging up, and Lidiya left. And this morning she wasn't answering, and I was thinking, like, oh my gosh, what if something happened to her? It really does change your perspective. And then when Lidiya answers, I'm like, hey, just wondering if you were alive. You are cool. I'll see you later. Anyways, but yeah, why don't you share? Because it's different when it's blood and family and all of that. So how do you guys work together?
Yeah, I mean, Justin, I couldn't be more grateful that Justin's down here now and getting involved in the business. He's now working for the property management company who manages my properties in Pinellas County, and he's doing an awesome job. I'd say, I had a pretty good operation that I was building. It was very kind of methodical. I've got my strategy, and Justin's kind of he's the rocket fuel on that whole strategy, right? He's come down, and to have him as an asset as far as property management goes for these deals is so valuable. He's absolutely crushing it. Occupancy is awesome across the properties that he's dealing with, and he's got his finger on the pulse of these things too, right? And then that brings into, the other side of why we're able to work so well together is, we've got great respect and admiration for each other. I, we're kind of, we get into our conversations that we're both very passionate, right? So we'll get into conversations that have a lot of passion in them. So whether they be yelling and screaming over kind of figuring out the right way to get something done, or whether it's just total, collaboration and, an artwork that we're both designing, it kind of teeter totters between those two things, right? So he, as I'm growing this thing, I have 4 properties right now, and I'm constantly wondering, okay, where are my blind spots? Not only what am I doing wrong that I can see myself doing wrong, but what am I doing wrong that I can't even see yet, right? So Justin is that for me, and I think that I'm that for him, right? So I think we're the sum of us together is, or how does that work? Where the two of us are greater than the sum of our parts, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And especially because you guys are blood, so it doesn't matter what you tell each other. 5 minutes later, it's like, yeah, yeah, you kind of have a point there, buddy. Anyways, go ahead.
It doesn't always
Yeah.
just take 5 minutes.
I tell
Sometimes
you
it
what,
takes a nighttime to cool off. We'll wake up in the morning and we'll sort it out. But we make it work, and it's
Yeah.
my life's better.
yeah,
My
Yeah.
life's better with him in it, and I hope that you'd say the same about me.
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's how family is. I have many brothers, and one of them drives me off the wall. But I tell you what, I would not change him for the life because he's my balancer. So love and hate relationship is very deep, but I appreciate him very, very deeply because he's real. I have a very interesting question to you. Imagine you have a crystal ball in your hand and you want to see what is happening in multifamily space and market, and how are you planning to adapt to it?
When? What's my timeline?
Ah, ha, ha, ha. Like 5 years, 10 years.
Well, how about in the next 6 months to a year?
Oh.
Yeah, that's an interesting timeline right there. My answer is that I know exactly what's going to happen, and everything that everybody else is saying doesn't matter because I know everything that's going on, and it's easy to predict. Is is a horrible answer right now, right? It's very difficult to predict. So the next 6 months to a year, I don't know, but I know that if I can find a property that makes sense based on cap rate, if lending kind of doesn't come in and gets involved in the situation. Obviously rates are way higher right now, right? So leverage is more expensive, and so for the past couple of years, maybe a good bank loan would make a mediocre or bad property look mediocre or good, right? And that's not really happening right now. So I know that if I can buy a property that's going to cash flow for the next 2 years based on the debt that I could get on it today, that's going to be a darn good property to own for the next 5 to 10 years. So I try not to get too caught up in where things are going. If I could buy a property that I can hold long term, I'm not necessarily looking at something that I need to be flipping in 6 to 12 months. That being said, obviously, when I buy these things, they're value add deals. I'm going to try to add value as quickly and efficiently as possible, right? So that doesn't change my plan. Whatever I close on the deal, I'm looking to make it beautiful and bump NOI as fast as humanly possible. Now, am I going to refinance that thing in the next 6 to 8 to 12 to 18 months? Maybe not right now. So I just need to find the properties that are worth buying, even if that refinance doesn't come into play, refinance sale doesn't come into play. Just trying to buy assets right now that I want to hold, and I don't want to be at the whim of the market when making financial decisions. If I can buy a property that I can hold for a long time right now, I'm going to do it.
Mhm. Right. And that is a great segue for the next question. When I was a kid, I heard somebody say that young people talk about the future and old people talk about the past. Well, being that you are very young, Alex, I do want to touch on your future because, like, there is people invest, like, we want to maybe at some point work together and bring you capital and work with you. But the worrisome of you is like, well, is he gonna get tired of this in 2 years, or what is the plan? What do you see yourself doing in the next 5-10 years? And it doesn't have to be exact because things change, but do you see yourself in this business growing it? Are you liking it enough to keep going? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm here to stay. So I guess to answer your question, is he going to get tired? Is this going to be overwhelming for him? No, I think I'm looking now to just continue to build my team as I need a larger team. It, like I said, it's not just me, and it can't be just me. Even if I don't get tired, there's only so many hours in the day, right? So I've got 4 different properties right now. They're all in some stage of value add still, even the first one. It's more minor projects at this point, but these properties take a lot of my time. So, as I move forward, I'll always be part of operations, right? I mean, my background's in property management, project management, and that's, one of the things that helps me make these properties so successful, right? But as I scale up, I'm obviously going to need, Justin ideally is going to be growing this property management side of the business. And I'll continue to add people to the team as I need it. Maybe a construction manager who's managing, if we've got 30 different projects going on, I can't be managing 30 different projects and looking into acquisitions and kind of long-term planning for the portfolio from a financial aspect as well. There's a ton of different hats that need to be worn, and I'm just looking to you know ideally you guys are part of that plan, right? I mean, we've had plenty of conversations about this, about how we'd love to work together, right? So it's all about just adding the right people to the soup and creating something great together.
Any new construction thoughts in the pipeline for the future? I mean, like
Development.
I'm in the land acquisition too side of things. Yeah.
At some point, probably, right? I mean, that gets me back to my, civil engineering roots, my construction management. Again, I have such great respect and admiration for developers. These people come in and they transform skylines of cities and make them great, right? And if you do it wrong, you can make it worse. But the things that have gone on in Tampa and St. Petersburg, Sarasota as well, over the past couple of years, it's been beautiful to watch, right? So yeah, I think at some point I'd be looking to expand into that, but that's not in a 12-month plan for sure. I'm looking to continue kind of doing what I'm doing, perfecting the art of acquisitions and operations of existing properties for now. But never say never, Mina.
That is great. You're definitely growing, changing, evolving, and building your team. That's amazing. So, to all of our listeners, if they want to contact you and partner up with you, how can they find you? And, besides LinkedIn, any other ways they can contact you?
Yeah, I have a website, ravenreal.com. That's my business, is Raven Real Estate Acquisitions. So ravenreal.com. I've got information about the company, information about the properties, information about myself. I've written a blog that I have on there as well it gets a little bit into the weeds of what I do. It's a little bit more detailed than I can get into in something like this, a podcast where it's kind of more of an overview, but getting kind of into the nuts and bolts of what I do, what kind of properties I look for and what I do to them once I have them. And then also I'm on Instagram as well. Justin and I have an account. It's called Jewel Rise, and that's spelled JUAL.rise. And that's Justin Alex is Jewel, the first 2 letters of our first names, where we put out some videos, some content about a lot of the value add projects that we're doing. And we try to make them funny or cool. And so, we really enjoy doing that. And that's something that we're growing. We've got a lot of videos in the works that we're working on right now, some projects that are going to be cool to unveil, and we'll show our Instagram followers what we're doing on there.
Well, I would love to help you guys out to get them out there. I think that would be interesting to see.
Yeah.
And
And why don't I'll just say
okay,
my email as well.
yes.
It's just my first name, alex@ravenreal.com. And then, feel free to shoot me a text, give me a call. My number is 914-621-6051. Any way you want to contact me, be my guest. I'd love to speak with you if you want to find out what I'm doing down here. It's exciting stuff. So I'm always looking for good partners, good investors to work with, and to kind of join me and us, move forward together.
Absolutely. That's the whole idea of being out there. This is why we do this, right? But it is to add value also and to help those that are getting started and are just behind us. And even just because the road looks so far away in front of us doesn't mean that we haven't traveled some behind us. I just want to thank you, Alex, for your time and your sharing, your passion, and just being an open book into what you're doing and your thoughts. I hope to see you soon in another podcast.
Definitely, Alex will follow up. We're gonna actually want to be part of your projects, and we definitely will follow up on you and want to see you grow even bigger than you can imagine, because I see so much potential with you. So each and every investor that comes on this podcast, I kind of see things in them. So for you, I see efficient and clever. And Mina can attest to that. When I met you first time, I'm like, Mina, who is this guy? I called you slick, but it was more of a efficient and clever. That's how I see you.
I said, "Oh, that's
Cool.
Alex."
Yes.
Well, I think the
Yeah, yeah,
same
I
of
love
you
it.
guys.
I
I
love it.
think obviously,
Yeah.
I think very highly of you guys. You guys are both incredibly smart, and I love what you're doing, working together, doing this podcast now. It's very exciting, and I'm looking forward to working with both of you guys very soon.
That's great.
Thank you, everybody, for
Thank
another
you for
episode.
everybody.
See you later.
See you
Bye.
later. Bye.
Bye bye.